All right, welcome into the Knoll Road, Steelers fans. What needs to happen for the Steelers to seriously make a run at this thing? 7 topics that define the Steelers' quest for their 7th Lombardi, if you will. It is game week. Here we go.
Van to the corner of the end zone. Oh, for a touchdown!
All right, and welcome in. I'm 25-year sports radio veteran Gavin Dawson. With me, as always, my favorite football Neanderthal, the all-academic SEC lineman at Kentucky, Newbear Lesniewski. How the hell are you, sir?
Well, let me just say, the GOAT, Tom Brady, is talking about how Aaron Rodgers is the best to ever throw it. And then the best top 5, my opinion, all time, let's go, in the comments. Ben Roethlisberger says this is a Super Bowl team. Like, it doesn't get any better than that.
No, it does not. And we should tell you real quick, the Knoll Road brought to you by Bet Online. Get up to $250 in bonus bets if you use the referral link in our description. We sure would appreciate it. Fastest payouts guaranteed, A+ rating, unmatched integrity. Bet Online is amazing no matter what state you are in for getting your extracurricular activity in. Please like the video, maybe consider subscribing if you will. And thanks to everybody for the comments. It's great to mix it up with you. And thanks for giving us a couple of days there. We took the extended holiday weekend there going into week 1, but we are ready to rock with you at least 3 or 4 times a week here on the Knoll Road. So let's start with this. You got 7 topics that define the quest for the 7th trophy, and number 1, Aaron Rodgers' magic mobility. Which wins out here?
Yeah, so the big thing is he washed? And that's where people want to take this. We see him doing traffic cones in practice, and we're going to say he's washed. Mike Greenberg and everyone else in the world who's talking about what Mike Tomlin has done for 18 years, but in particularly for the past few post Big Ben, going 10-7 on average with the likes of Mitchell Trubisky, Kenny Pickett et al. And then you go, any magic from 8 is 12-5. Any magic from 8 is first round bye. Like, how much does he have left in the tank for real? That's the first topic on the tree for me.
I think it is difficult to tell somebody's athleticism when they're running away from you, especially horizontally on a football field. But there's a hitch in that giddy up as he's rolling out to his left. I think all older guys can relate to this, and that's why it's a topic coming off the Achilles at this age. Let me throw this out there, Newbear. You react to it. You tell me if I'm crazy or not, but I don't think you can count on the Aaron Rodgers mobility, the things that he's done in playoff games, sometimes even on a strained calf as a significantly younger man. I don't think you can count on that to pull you through like you used to. I think it's got to come down to the protection.
Well, and if paging Justin Fields, insert your favorite mobile quarterback, and Mike Tomlin doesn't trust him to throw the ball over the middle of the field scheme, do you want that? Like, you want Aaron Rodgers playing on time and on target. You want this team to become a run first, play action over the top, win with defense. And then Tomlin came out and said, I expect fireworks. Tomlin came out and said, I expect us to score points. I am not concerned about this offense.
I wouldn't be concerned about this offense either. And as long as it stays, I mean, to your point, as long as it stays on script and it's out early and everything's flowing, but you cannot count on that over a 17-game season. And you especially can't count on that in the playoffs.
Well, the pocket mobility, right? We don't need him going and getting, oh, hey, it's 3rd and 20. He's not getting 21. It's 3rd and 7. Can he get 8? I don't care until the AFC Championship game. Until then, I literally want him to throw it to his grandmother in the stands.
Okay, so let me take you over here to Ted Wynn, one of the great football writers out there. He's always doing stuff, but he asked opposing OCs. He asked anonymous OCs basically to talk about one another. And on Arthur Smith, he says coaches love the design of this run game and play action concepts, but his drop back package leaves a lot to be desired. I think a lot of it comes down to how good is the offense? How does Aaron Rodgers and Arthur Smith marry what they're good at and come with a better solution than what we saw last year. I think that's number one. You can't, and we're not going to get anything close to that. But then you mentioned Roethlisberger, and in that podcast, he also talked about the offensive line and said, and Steelers fans might not like me for this, but can you keep Aaron Rodgers protected? And I think, both of these things are mandatory, and I don't know which one I have more confidence in right now, Arthur Smith or the offensive line, Newbear, but both definitely aren't maxed out.
So this is number 2, right? Aaron Rodgers' magic versus mobility is this. The offensive line, particularly the bookends, Broderick Jones is number 2. Because if we can trust Broderick Jones to be a reasonable facsimile of your favorite left tackle in your favorite city or your favorite tackle in this esteemed city of all time, and you don't have to help. You don't have to play unbalanced line with Mount Washington, chip with Jalen Warren, et cetera, at all. Then you can do all kinds of really fun stuff with the other 4 guys. If you got to help Broderick Jones, you take away from everything that we're talking about right now. You take away, forget Aaron Rodgers' mobility, Aaron Rodgers' magic. If you have to if you're only putting 4 out, you're literally taking a chess piece off the board every time. Like Broderick Jones over even the bookends. I would say Broderick Jones number 2 over the 2 of them together. Because if Broderick Jones is right and Fetanu is not, you can help him a lot easier.
And how much better can a great quarterback, let's say Tom Brady would take offensive linemen that have been cut from other teams. Now, all of a sudden they appear to be significantly better. Their efficiency scores are much higher because, that football is coming out.
Well, not only that, but you are throwing it away. Like Aaron Rodgers, he's not worried about the completion percentage. He cares about the interception percentage. I do think that is a number he is aware of as much as he jokes about it. He doesn't put the ball in harm's way unless we're in Hail Mary territory. And then when you watch him do Hail Mary, half Mary, quarter Mary, whatever they call it, and you go, man, how did he place that ball? He is just so damn special spinning that thing out. Tom Brady is correct to come into a conversation and say, this might be the best dude to ever do it. And it's not just about playing fast. It's not about tempo and, oh, hey, look, this quick screen. But it is about playing on time and on target. And what do you mean by that is what you're talking about with the Arthur Smith stuff is, can DK Metcalf be A.J. Brown? Not A.J. Brown in Tennessee, but A.J. Brown in Philadelphia. Can DK Metcalf take that next step and become a guy where you're mitigating some of the maybe, marginalized concept stuff because we're counting on tight ends to be wide receiver 2s? And are other guys going to step up around this dude, meaning Aaron Rodgers?
I certainly hope so. And I think it starts with the offensive line more so than Broderick Jones. I think if everybody was elite and Broderick Jones is who he is, you'd be like, okay, our left tackle isn't our best player, but we can get around this. I think, I don't know how much you respect Warren Sharp or PFF, but both of those put the Steelers in the bottom third. So, I think you need Zach Frazier to take a big step. I support what they did with Jones and Fetanu. Like, investing in an offensive line like this is great, but not everybody gets to be the Eagles, where 2 out of every 3 offensive linemen they draft become perennial All-Pros.
Can't talk about the Eagles without talking about Sam Alou. You talk about people stepping up. How about just being who you're supposed to be? And right now, Zach Frazier is the 3rd best center in the NFL. And what you're talking about a step forward for him, that means he's in the ESPN or the NFL Network top 100 next year. He's a top 100 player. That's what we're talking. That's how good Zach Frazier can be. Mason McCormick looks like a real piece. And some of the depth stuff, Andrews Pete and different things they've done and guys they kept. You talk about keeping 9 or 10 guys, practice squad, and what that looks like from, who's up and who's down week to week. I'm sitting here going, man, if the bookends are right, man, if Zach Frazier takes a leap, the less you have to help, the more you can just trust your guys to win more often at the time. The PFF stuff is interesting until you kind of really start to pick it apart from the one thing that we do know is that you traded up to draft Broderick Jones as a left tackle. You watched him come through the airport in flip-flops saying, this is that dude. And then you eschewed all that and moved him to the right side, watched him get hurt playing backwards in a mirror. And now we're just like, wait a minute, dude can't play. We traded up to get him. We did wrong by him for 2 years. Let's let him go out and prove us right.
I like that. I'll drink to that, actually. Let's crack some cold beers here on the Knoll Road. Let us know in chat if you want one. I'll beer you. I'll beer you in person, see you at the draft party. But, Newbear, this is where projecting to a Lombardi becomes difficult, because we're not talking about, hey, are you kind of good? Is your arrow pointing up? Can we make excuses for why you struggle? Like, you need to perform better than you did in 2024, and planning for that to happen. I can't do that. Now, here's how I would look at it. You are what you are right now. Once the season starts, if your offense is going 3 and out, 3 points at half, where can you obviously look to make improvements? I would think with the money that you got and with the draft picks that you got, offensive line needs to be on the table. And I would, let me throw out Trent Williams, San Francisco. I think the 49ers are heading for a big wake-up call season, and their fans are living in fantasy land thinking they're going to jump back into contention. I think they're an injury to Christian McCaffrey, which seems like about a 75% chance away from being in a total rebuild.
So you're saying, what would you give up to go get the big man? That's a fascinating one, because what would you do with him? Would you kick him inside, or would you ask Broderick Jones to kick inside? Like, what's really interesting about all this stuff is
I want to go from average to great with my starters. I want to send them Broderick Jones back. Say, here's a young guy to start your rebuild.
I understand. So now maybe what else are they giving us? Can we get Ricky Pearsall? I'd love to see that dude in black and gold. As we go through the machinations of building on top of the building, right? Of going to the architectural hut and saying, how do we change the shape? How do we shift and mold this team? That's a really interesting thing to think about, and that might actually be
offensive line. Would you want to add pieces on the fly? If you're not scoring and Aaron Rodgers is under pressure coming off the blind side, I mean, if you plan on winning with Aaron Rodgers, that would be my first stop.
All right. So, what's your favorite cartoon TV show? Pick one, and we don't have to agree. What I'm saying is, whether it's Family Guy or Deadwood or anything in between, there is a meme right now trending, hashtag Steelers attached, 3 and out the first 36 seconds of week 1. Like, people are waiting for that to go splat, right? Like, there is an expectation that all this hype and all this stuff, all the buddy, man. And you know what? Here's where it's going to get really real. If they go 3 and out, but there's a laser cannon rocket ball shot down the seam, and that thing, it's not dirted, it's darted. I'm okay with punting. I'm okay with keeping it moving. I'm okay with, even if they struggle out the gate, because the shape of this football team and the way they play the horizontal vertical stretch game hasn't existed. This has been all about, how do you not make mistakes? Aaron Rodgers, the reason I was talking about paying attention to the interception percentage is because people talk about, I think the Steelers are 17-0 in the last 17 games. They haven't turned the ball over. You don't think Tomlin's going, hey, gold jacket. Like, if you're going to take shots, let's make sure that we still don't give the ball to the other team. How much of that is Aaron Rodgers willing to kind of kick the bucket and say, I'm going to do me?
I would imagine a lot if the bleep hits the fan. If you're struggling, I think you're going to get a very vocal Aaron Rodgers, a very snarky, passive-aggressive. The competitiveness will come out. The benefits of the ayahuasca and the ketamine will diminish.
He's already doing it on Cam's podcast without any of that stuff. He looks clear-eyed, right? And full-hearted, can't lose. So from Friday Night Lights to Saturday afternoon, as we start to peel the onion on what this thing is going to look like, the rumors that, Aaron Rodgers is forcing the ball to the point where people are taking half-speed reps of Pat Freiermuth having temper tantrums because he's throwing, stick routes to DK Metcalf to make him really feel like he's wide receiver 1. The Patrick Queen pick on the first play of camp gets really interesting if they come out and the first play is some regular looking thing and it's a bad play. It's a pick. It's doesn't look good, and it's slow and it's late, and it's because now you're forcing the ball to a guy who maybe isn't a wide receiver 1. Now you're asking tight ends to be wide receiver 2. Now it's not Roman Wilson season, and Calvin Austin III isn't even a part of the conversation. Like, I'm thinking outward, and I'm thinking about the Penny Sewell, Jamar Chase conversation. I'm thinking that if you struggle out the gate, are you willing to flip something back into the Terry McLaurin conversation? Not for obviously Scary Terry, but for the cheetah, for some of the other dumpster fire type stuff. Like, Ricky Pearsall, jokes aside, I happen to be really high on that young man. But if Brock Purdy at $53 million even with that schedule they're going to get because of how bad they were last year. If McCaffrey goes down, you talk about reasonable facsimile. Anybody being a reasonable facsimile of a Shanahan running back still keeps you in contention. If Brock Purdy's worth even 3/4 of $53 million a year, are they going to be willing to move? And how far would they have to fall until you're giving up, second and third day picks for a guy like Ricky Pearsall? That's what's really interesting to me.
Their ownership pivoted. Their ownership got ticked off at everything that happened last year, and they already scaled way back. I mean, San Francisco is just one example, but I think my point would be, if you really believe in your team as much as you do, and you've got this night, I wouldn't let a bad left tackle or a bad wide receiver 2 situation get in my way. Okay, and that's a good segue into the third branch on this topic tree as we go through the 7 most important things for a 7th Lombardi. It is wide receiver 2. And we did several videos about this during the offseason. I thought for sure something was going to happen. I guess it's not the end of the world, but as you get ready to take on the Jets here, you got to think this is a good defense that's going to get after Aaron Rodgers, that has quality elite players at all 3 levels. Sauce Gardner is out there. Can you get any wide receiver open? And if it is that bad, and on the other side, they're running through you a little bit, like a bad loss to the Jets week 1, I think would make us rethink everything. And like, just to bring it back here, wide receiver 2 would have to be at the top of the list for them.
Yeah, and then you look at like Bobby Trees saying, "Hey man, I want to be part of the 53, and if that's not going to be a thing, then let me go." Like even the high priced veteran, long in the tooth guys who could look at this and say, "This is a chance to get another ring. This is a legacy play." Like, it's not that simple, because these guys who can still play want to play. And you look at this and you go, forget being a decoy. How about just being non-existent? Like the way they're talking about wide receiver 2 not being a deal, it's not a big deal. It's just that it's not a deal at all. This offense doesn't need a second wide receiver. Then why have anybody but DK Metcalf? Just cut them all. Just sign 17 tight ends and 29 running backs and come out in your aught 4 and do the damn thing. And I don't know. I'm just sitting here going and looking at it going, okay, everyone's so high on Drake May. Everyone thinks Mike Vrabel is going to come in and turn New England around. If they don't make that leap and Diggs is sitting out there, like, what do you have to flip to take that next level? If you're really and truly chasing the ship, if we are really talking about rings, if this is a legacy defining team, and we're not going to go chase Cheetah, and we're not going to give up 1s and 2s for the future quarterback because Will Howard's going to waste the year on IR, and we're going to have to find out who he's going to do battle with Skylar Thompson at all going forward. Arch Manning sweepstakes over. 1 week of college football. He can't play, right? What are we chasing? The 7th Lombardi.
Yeah.
What does it cost to go solve those problems?
Well, let me jump in here. You saw what Green Bay just did. They said, yeah, you can have 2 1s. The Steelers are still trying to do this thing. And I ranted about it 2 months ago, Newbear. You can't save the long term while building for now. You got to build for now, like tomorrow doesn't matter. And then when tomorrow gets there, you have a whole nother buffet of options available for you.
12 picks next year, a lot of maneuverability. And I do think it's not even necessarily about Sellers or Lagway or any of these things in the next couple of years. I think it's more about them being able to say, well, if Aaron Rodgers does come back and Roman Wilson does take this step, then here's where we at. And you start talking about second and third day picks that you tag on to move up a little bit further and go take that step the way they want to do it. The way that it's less splashy, it's more controlled, you're targeting your guys and very specifically attacking holes in the team or in the scheme. And all I'm saying is, as you go through this, and you were talking about it from the inside out, and you always want to start up front, because if you can win, if your 5 are better than their 4, the math, it's not just about having +1. It's about how that allows you to get 5 out in the routes. It changes everything from the geometry of the football. So if that is true, and we're doing everything we can do to be as good as we can be, and it's still not good enough, then that means that you have to take a player who can take the top off whatever the D is trying to do.
I like it. Okay, speaking of the defense, let's move over there and talk about, TJ Watt and Jalen Ramsey, some of the older players, a younger player. Do you want to go just to health here or the quality of the defensive line? What's sticking out to you?
Yeah, so what's really interesting about this is what's the first deck or the first card, right, in the house of cards that you would pull? Because if Derek Harmon's not right, and Cam Hayward's going on his podcast saying, we'll see, while Mike Tomlin's saying he's going to play, nothing to worry about, nothing to see here. All of a sudden, depth gets really interesting if that number one guy, if the true one goes down, and everyone else is, well, guess what? Highsmith with the groin, Herbig with this, that, or the other. Like, all of a sudden, all these guys are a little bit dinged up. And now these guys that you would say, okay, you're not playing 20, 25 snaps, Jack Snoyer. You're not playing 40, maybe split the game in half, Herbig, right? You're not saying, oh, hey, to the other side, Herbig step up. You're starting to have this domino effect because everybody's a little bit banged up. And this is week one, and there's only one guy out. And look at how much of an impact that's already going to have. Or Cam not being in shape and how much that is going to impact, how much that is going to compound. So if TJ were to go down or if Ramsey were to go down, those are the two guys that you're talking about playing at multiple levels of this defense. When you're talking about TJ Watt being in the B gap or mugging the A gap and dropping and doing things that only TJ Watt can do, that, you know, Myles Garrett in his wettest dream could not be TJ Watt complete football player. Those things go away if he rolls an ankle. Those things go away if he gets parked over right tackle and he gets in a 3-point stance or a sprinter stance and you're going and hunting quarterbacks. Same thing, domino effect. Joey Porter Jr., Darius Slay, Ramsey chief among them, because he's the only one that they're talking about playing three levels. They want Slay and Porter to go trail 1 and 2, and they want to be able to move and say bleep you with whatever we want to do with Ramsey. So when you start talking about the multi-level guys going down and the domino effect that they have, that is the first negative part of this conversation where you're going, I'm good with what I got, but, or I'm good with what I got, and here's how that changes really quickly.
Yeah, it could. You know, and NFL is a war of attrition. And if you have older guys who have had some injuries, I think you're walking on thin ice a little bit more. I guess long term, I feel incredible about this defensive front, though. And they have a much better personnel group than most every team. And whatever spots you're looking at and sort of nitpicking, just go study other teams for a while. I think they have an absolute treasure trove of weapons they can throw out there. Now, that being said, that's for an 18-week season. This game against the Jets, who want to run it at you. They have Breece Hall, they have Justin Fields, and they want to hang their hat on their defense. This could turn into the rock fight that you worry about. You know, so I think for this game with the rust factor on Hayward, with Derek Harmon being out, you know, I think that creates a pretty clear path to victory for the Jets.
Yeah, and Tomlin had this really funny quote today where he was talking about how, I would say that, you know, you would suggest, or data or numbers would say that there's probably going to be a run element, a run factor for their quarterback of the New York Football Jets. It's like he says things in the most ridiculous way possible, where it's like, yeah, they're going to fucking run Justin Fields. Like, they're going to have Q run series, and it's going to challenge us because Cam is fat and out of shape. Harmon's hurt. Highsmith's coming off a groin. Herbig's coming back from a hammy. Like, all these things mitigating what we may or may not do. So what I want to see is them go over the top to start. What I want to see is them be aggressive AF coming out the gate and try to make Justin Fields chase them. Because I love Garrett Wilson. I drafted him everywhere I could in fantasy. I think he's arguably, you know, pound for pound, he might be the most talented wide receiver in the NFL. I'm not saying he's the best, but I'm saying pound for pound, because he's not nearly as big as Chase and Jefferson and some of those other guys. Certainly not DK Metcalf, George Pickens at all from just a traits perspective. But when you watch him play, who else do they have? It's like Tom Brady early in his career. Name the guys Justin Fields is throwing the ball to. So you're going to say that's Ramsey week 1. He's going to shut him down, or that's Slay, or that's Joey Porter Jr. Somebody get in his ass and make everyone else beat you and go hunt that quarterback.
Josh Reynolds and Alan Lazard, by the way, just to your point, it's not too much to be worried about. But defensive line wise, how much of, you know, is the concern maybe an overreaction to what happened against the Ravens?
No, because Quinnen Williams is that dude. If he's healthy, he's might be the best at what he does in the whole damn league. And when you start talking about the way that you wreck games from the inside out, and if that dude is going to go on a heater and make you not just have the double team, but beat double teams. You can chip, and you can flare, and you can bump, and you can motion, and you can do all these other things to mitigate TJ Watt. It's a lot harder to do inside because once you commit 2 guys, there's almost nothing else you could. What are you going to do? Have a running back just hang out in case he beats the double team? Like, what are you going to do?
No.
So when you start talking about the way that they can impact the game from the inside out, everyone wants to talk about Sauce, and rightfully so. But when you look at these dudes that they have in the middle of the field and the question marks that the Steelers have, because we think Zach Frazier's ready to make the leap, but we also don't know if Sayamalu's truly healthy. He had a soft tissue injury. We also don't know if Mason McCormick, he had a really, really, really bad PFF grade. And there's a lot of dudes saying we need to trade to go bring someone in over his head because we can't trust that he's just going to get right. The same conversation we're having about Roman Wilson outside, we're having about Mason McCormick at right guard.
Yeah, I was just looking at it like what the Ravens did to you on the ground. You know, how much has that traumatized the Steelers fan base into thinking our defensive line isn't good enough? Like, I think Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry are going to do things that every other NFL team doesn't to you and makes you question yourself. But to me, that's a small sample size. It was one horrible game in Steelers history, but I wouldn't count on that being a big concern.
Man, it's really funny to think about that and the parallels. Like, I don't want to say all the way to homeless, but I mean definitely poor man's, right? Because people just love to hate on Justin Fields. So let's call him poor man's Lamar Jackson. He can do all the same things, impact the game the same way. But then you look at the scheme and you go, the Ravens have really good tight ends. And you don't necessarily think or trust or love their wide receivers. Bateman's a high pick. Zay Flowers a high pick, and he's a guy who's coming, and when he's healthy, he makes plays. And Lamar is putting up numbers where people are throwing up graphics saying this is like prime Aaron Rodgers running a 4.240. And then give me the poor man's version of that with Justin Fields and let him go make plays. We just saw that happen here in Pittsburgh. He should have been 6-0. Could have been 6-0. Should have been 5-1. Was 4-2. 6 games into last year. There were a lot of people who wanted him to stay under center. There were a lot of people looking back now who would have liked to have seen what that looked like because heading into the offseason, you would have had the answers. I think that's where a lot of the stuff comes from me, whether it's McCormick, whether it's Roman Wilson, whenever I talk about getting the answers to the question, understanding where you grade out at the end of the test, it's that they brought in Russell Wilson and Justin Fields last year. And at the end of last year, they didn't have any more answers than they did going in. That's what's troubling about the way the Steelers have played the game the past few years. What you hope with Aaron Rodgers being the guy is that he's taken the test before.
Yes, he has. And he's done quite well at those tests, multiple-time MVP. And his number 1 wide receiver target is number 5 for us here on this show tonight here on the Knoll Road. Brought to you by Bet Online. Where do you have DK Metcalf? Is he a good enough wide receiver 1 to dictate coverages?
So he is on the Mount Rushmore, right? Based on what you're paying him. And what does that mean? That means that you're talking about CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, and then we're here at DK Metcalf. And he's one of those dudes, and I've talked about this before, about how he does things that look like it's on a green screen. They actually did a whole spot about how much of a specimen he is, where it's like, this isn't fake. Like, this is how sick this dude is. And when you go back and you look at it over time and you see him as like a 23-year-old Pro Bowler, All-Pro 2 in year 2, throwing up almost 16 yards and 10 tutties on 80 catches, and then replicating that to a certain extent the following year with 12 tutties, but everything else kind of comes down. And he's not an All-Pro, and he's not a Pro Bowler, and that doesn't happen for a couple of years, even though he puts up a couple more 1,000-yard seasons. You go, like, how different is this guy than Terry McLaurin? He's way bigger. He's faster. He's more of a specimen.
He's the opposite of McLaurin, though.
He's the opposite. That's what you said, right?
Yeah.
Because he's a physical specimen. He's a freak. Next to anyone but Megatron, he's one of one. And then you look at a guy like Terry McLaurin and you go, why are their numbers the same? Because that dude's a professional wide receiver. Because that dude is a true wide receiver 1. And what's the difference between the two? Well, one of them is a guy that you're going to design a scheme around. Not just scheme open, but build the whole damn thing for. And to this point, DK Metcalf has not been that guy. So much so that Jackson Smith and Jigma was able to come in and steal wide receiver 1 from him. That's why Cooper Kupp, that's why everything changed. That's why he's here. That's why we're having this conversation. So I think what you're betting on with him are the traits, and you're betting on him being an age 28 season, which should be like traditionally is that peak, prime of manhood. And this is a guy who's put up numbers. This is a guy who's done it with a couple of different quarterbacks, a couple of different systems, in a couple of different ways. And every time he's healthy, you're going to get everything he's got. The only question is, does he have enough polish? The only question is, does he have that extra little special something that truly makes him elite, that makes him deserve that contract? And here's the great thing. If I'm going to demand answers and I'm going to challenge this organization to do things better, Aaron Rodgers is going to give us those answers. Aaron Rodgers is going to throw this ball 10, 12 times a game. We're going to find out.
We are going to find out. And to answer your question, I think he's probably inside the top 10, but he plays like an ideal wide receiver too. That's going to be that deep threat. So to me, they still need that complementary piece that fits in there. But more than that, I would be looking for the absolute best wide receiver that we could get.
I will say this: he is so much like AJ Brown from a traits perspective. And when you talk about Ole Miss guys and guys, have had different injury problems or different challenges, becoming, let's just say, all they can be. AJ Brown's a lazy route runner. I mean, I was sending you stuff at the Super Bowl the other night, just going like, look at this. This is supposed to be a dagger. If Tom Brady's his quarterback, this is a laser cannon rocket ball over an ear hole of a whole shot linebacker. And AJ Brown, especially if he's got a two-way go, if AJ Brown is one-on-one, you don't want to see anyone else. I will say that not Jamar Chase, if AJ Brown is one-on-one, you do not want to see anyone else. I don't care who's covering him because he's so physical and he can do everything that those other three guys do. But if you're going to talk about being a complete receiver, that's why he needs Devonta Smith. That's why Jalen Hurts doesn't trust things beyond his own limitations. That's why beyond the scheme, you see him pull the ball down, pump fake, roll out, and throw the dude who was open 10 seconds ago and hit him on the sideline and watch him get lit up. The thing that's different about Aaron Rodgers when we talk about on time and on target is if DK is capable of being where he's supposed to be, he's about to win fantasy leagues.
Topic number 6 here, the 7 keys for number 7 at running back. Warren getting the extension. What is it? About $7 million a year. Congratulations to him. Kaleb Johnson, 3rd on the depth chart. Where do you want to go here relative to running back, Newbear?
Well, it's cool because there's this picture circulating where Warren's got his arm around Kaleb Johnson and
total stud teammate wise, just all the intangibles and leadership flowing from him. I guess it's easy to be nice when you just want a big poker hand or, when you just got paid, nicest guy at the table or whatever. But I think he's a great role model for Kaleb Johnson. And I like what the team is doing, not turning it over to Kaleb. I think he's a guy that showed incredible work ethic in training camp, is addressing his weaknesses, is very serious about it. And the best way with young players to continue to get that out of them is to, encourage competition.
They love Gainwell. Let's not sleep on him too. I mean, he's a really, really good player who just got buried a couple of different ways. He's literally listed as running back too. I mean, Johnson's pushed all the way down to 3, which is going to kill some of my fantasy teams because I love that kid and I maybe bet some things on him. But, all kidding aside, Warren has been to this point, undrafted, $12,000 signing bonus, whatever the millions are, it's exponentially more than what he got to start living out his dream. And now he's the guy in that running back room who's putting his arm around guys saying, this is how you become everything that you can be. Follow me, watch me, learn from me. And you showed that clip, one of the very first pods we ever did, where you said you'd never seen a running back step up in pass pro and do what Jalen Warren did that day. And he's not that big. And then you go, well, how did he go undrafted? Because he's not that big. He's not that fast. He's not that whatever. He's a guy who's going to get everything that's there. And then his effort, his attitude is going to get you that next little bit more. Kaleb Johnson has way more size, not a lot more speed. Kaleb Johnson has, the 3-down elements, putting your face in the fan and being a guy that you can become the bell cow back. There's a world that we live in where Kaleb Johnson is actually way better for Jalen Warren than Jalen Warren's good for Kaleb Johnson because he extends Warren's career because he's taking carries and wear and tear. And we start talking about Jalen Warren like we talk about Darren Sproles playing forever. We start talking about, Jalen Warren being that 3rd-down guy who gets you the Super Bowl. You're worried about Christian McCaffrey? Yeah, we got Jalen Warren. Let's step him in. Let's plug and play. Like, whatever the team is, whatever the scheme is, whatever the circumstance is, Warren's one of those dudes who could just basically play forever in a day. where Kaleb Johnson needs to grow into that role where he becomes the 350, 400 touch guy. Like that's the road we're headed down. And in between is Kenny Gainwell, who's a hell of a player. And the Steelers plan on giving him the ball a ton. And
I just think he's a almost ideal third down back, and he complements what you got going on. I don't think if Kaleb Johnson can't be your starter, I think he's got to be 3 because I'm not putting him in on third down.
Well, and that's the thing that's so funny is people talk about third down backs. And what does that mean? What do they look like? Look at the difference between Derrick Henry. What's that?
Pass pro and receiving, right?
Right. But look at the difference between Justice Hill and Derrick Henry. Wouldn't you think you would want Derrick Henry being the guy protecting Lamar Jackson? Right? Justice Hill's a completely different man. He is a different human being, not just because King Henry is 101. And as much as, you go look up his high school stats, go look up, everybody knows we did at Bama. You look up some of the stuff on PlayStation, Xbox isn't even enough of a gross understatement for what that dude has done at every stage of his life, meaning Derrick Henry. And then you go, okay, he just goes off the field and here comes Justice Hill and we're good with him being the guy who's got Lamar's back. Yeah, because he'll put his face in the fan and then he'll go kill you. 3rd and 7, he's going to get 8. 3rd and 11, he's going to find a way to get 12. And then he can step in and spell him, as you need to. This is literally the opposite of that because they need Kaleb Johnson to get the confidence and to grow into the place where you trust him enough on 1st and 2nd down to be the guy who can be on the field for 80% of the game and let these other guys kind of go take it to the next level after he goes and bangs and kind of clears the way.
Yeah. It's incredible that sometimes significantly smaller guys make much better pass pro guys, but it's
crazy.
It's just a different skill set, like making guys miss or mirroring, right? Mirroring. Am I a wide receiver? Am I a DB? And it's just crazy how sports brains work.
Well, I was always the shortest. I think I was the shortest lineman in the SEC for my entire career. Well, no, there was the one kid at South Carolina because that was a thing in pregame where they were saying my names in ways that I didn't know you could pronounce it.
They called you the Rudy of the South, from my understanding.
Down between the hedges, as Keith Jackson would have said. What is really fun about that when you start talking about low center of gravity and all those other things is it cuts both ways, right? Because if you're gonna bring some heat-seeking missile. And then that's the play that we call the slip screen where we want you to blitz and then we just flip it right by your ear hole and we're out the gate. Like, let's go. So that's what's really interesting about this whole thing in terms of Jaylen Warren being a first down back and what that prevents or keeps Kaleb Johnson from becoming. I think it's a name and title type thing. And then I think we're going to find out, we just got the new contract. This isn't a bad pun. I'm not trying to be funny. But I think Kaleb Johnson's the one who's actually ultimately going to get paid to be the first down, second down back. Because if Jaylen Warren is that guy, that's a completely different role than anything you've asked him to do. So all these metrics, all these data, all data points, all the reason you love Warren almost potentially gets rendered moot if you're asking him to do that in the Najee Harris role.
All righty. We have arrived at number 7. And to me, there's not many weaknesses on this defense. We could go through almost every position. I'd be like, wow, Super Bowl ready. I am concerned about safety, Newbear. Where are you with these guys? I think it's easy to sort of go cheap at this spot. I think it's become an NFL trend. We can't have everything, so let's not invest too much at safety. I think if you want to be a generational great defense, you got to have some answers there.
Well, I don't know about you, but I was legitimately holding my breath when the whole Chuck Clark waiver. Like, I know there's these unwritten rules. Don't tell Howie Roseman that, by the way. He'll go claim your ass off waivers if he really wants to. But there's these unwritten rules about, especially veteran guys that don't make the initial 53. Because, people understand that they're trying to go through the machinations of working the salary cap and guarantees versus non-guarantees and what you're able to do for guys based on how they're vested and all these other things that the minutia of it is beyond fast. It's actually kind of disturbing that you're talking about like making a move to save $168,000 when we're talking about a $300 million, year-to-year cap and
crazy how greedy these billionaires can get.
$13 billion valuations for teams. So I was legitimately holding my breath that someone was going to come grab Chucky Clark because Miles Killebrew was literally the third safety on the roster, right? It was Juan and Deshaun. And I love Miles Killebrew. He's might even be better in the community than he is on the field. And he's an all-pro special teamer, but that's what he is. He's a special teamer. He'll be where he's supposed to. He's like Jack Sanborn, or who's your favorite? Pick a guy anywhere who's just like a try-hard guy who doesn't have the traits. That's who he is. So I was really happy when he came, back on through. And then I started just kind of like going through, like, have you looked at, I keep banging the drum for guys like Asante Samuel. There's guys out there who, like, at corner and some of these other positions who are legit players. Samuel has the big neck injury, which I don't know if he needs to get cleared or if he's waiting for like
week 8, week 10. The last I heard of Asante Samuel, we've been tracking it close.
And that's not a safety, right? So this isn't a one-to-one conversation. But when I'm
Ramsey, I mean, if I'm looking for any way to get more playmaking in there, more coverage ability out of safety.
Yeah. So like what I'm saying is when you click to safety and you go look through like who's out there, like, I mean, if I were to say like Jordan Poyer, or if I were to say Jordan Whitehead, or like pick another Jordan and then just make up a name, like that's kind of where we're at, where we're just like making up potential free agent guys like Madden or NCAA 26, where you're just making stuff up going like, can this dude even play? Or is this dude's neck broken? We'll see you 10 weeks into the season and hope. Like that's where we're at on the back end. And that was why the signal that was sent with the Minka trade, you can go get value in the back end and you can say, all right, this is how we're going to take that chance. It's not the same out on the island. It's not the same in the slot. And this is the first time, thankfully, this is the one caveat to, I mean, look, I'm going to wear the 39 color rush until it falls apart. Like Minka is one of my favorite Steelers of all time. I legitimately argued with the wife about wanting the last daughter's name to be Minka. Not just because I'm just saying, man.
Yeah.
You go through the process of fandom and how things like collide in your life and where those syllables match up or don't. And that's what's
named Abby. Yeah. Old Abby Wambach had that goal.
You're the big soccer guy. That's you got to introduce yourself here to Steelers Nation as Coach the General Dawson. Like you got some P's and Q's that we'll have to get up on the whiteboard and argue about some fun stuff between the cross. I mean, Ted Lasso comes back. That's a whole nother podcast. So, the back end in particular.
Minka's a great name.
Picking.
So it is I like Chuck Clark. I like Deshaun Elliott. I like Juan Thornhill. I don't think you have one guy in there that can do both as a safety. I saw Clark get absolutely destroyed on a move by Sterling Shepard, in the preseason. I think his coverage ability on the ball and then getting, handoff situations from one zone to another, I think he's going to struggle. I don't know if you're getting much of the passing game playmaking from safety. So I think it would probably be number 3 on my list. Offensive line, wide receiver 2, safety that I have question marks on as we go through these lists of I don't know if you're going to get enough production to make me have Super Bowl level confidence from this.
So I would actually push it all the way to 1 for me, because you start to, if Deshaun Elliott goes down, then what? And what's so terrifying about this is the want, the wane, the cause, the concern. Tomlin didn't trust his corners, right? And because he didn't trust his corners, he had Minka playing. So if you take the eraser away, then how are you filling out the Scantron? How are we've been talking about Aaron Rodgers having taken the test before. If he didn't trust his corners and that made him place a certain kind of way, if you can't trust your safety help over the top, what does that change? That's why this gets elevated for me.
We made it to week 1, brother. The Knoll Road brought to you by our friends at Bet Online. Again, a referral link in the description. Hit that link. You'll get up to $250 in bonus bets, and you're going to be rolling with the best online sports book in the world. They have casino games. They have poker rooms and poker tournaments that I love, and hope to see you on there. If you do see Mr. Untouchable sit down in your in your poker tournament, just hope I'm not to your left. Anything else, Newbear, before we sign off for the evening?
Like you talked about, man, we're going to plug in, 3-4 times a week. We're going to get into some pre, some posts. We've been practicing with the all 22, arguing with each other. Also, how bad is that interface? I think that's where I would end tonight's is the thing I'm the most concerned about.
Navigation, please.
How bad is the NFL app, and how bad is you literally hit pause And when you re-hit it, instead of it just hitting play, it either rewinds or fast forwards 30 seconds. It's fucking impossible.
Thank you, sir. Back soon. Like and sub on the way out if you love us as much as we love you. Until next time, we'll see you on the Knoll Road.